Today's lesson is Module 5, Lesson 7, Distance on the Coordinate Plane. Today we're going to review some skills that we learned earlier this year in Module 3, and we're going to explore some shapes on the coordinate plane in this module. But first we got to figure out how to determine the distance on the coordinate plane. So the first thing I want you to remember is that coordinates are written as x comma y. So we will always look for our number on our x-axis first and then follow that with the y-axis. Remember, there are 4 quadrants. And I'm just going to sketch out a coordinate plane right here just to remind you of those 4 quadrants. This is quadrant 1, and we go counterclockwise. So this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. Now, inside these quadrants, you will look for numbers that are positive or negative. The coordinates in quadrant 1 will both be positive. The coordinates in quadrant 2, the x-coordinate will be negative and the y-coordinate will be positive. In quadrant 3, it's going to be the opposite of quadrant 1. Both coordinates will be negative. And then in quadrant 4, it's going to be the opposite of quadrant 2. So the x-coordinate will be positive, but the y-coordinate, oops, I wrote y. The y-coordinate will be negative. When looking at the 2 coordinates, or ordered pairs, they're referred using the same terminology. Once it's placed on a coordinate plane, it's called a coordinate. Before you plot the numbers, when you are just given the x number and the y number, those are ordered pairs. So we can use those terms interchangeably. If the, and I'm going to put an ellipsis here because I want you're going to add this. If the x-coordinate are the same, the line is vertical. And remember, we reviewed this in lesson 5 that vertical meant up and down. If the y-coordinates are the same, the line is horizontal. And again, we reviewed that in lesson 5 that horizontal meant left to right. We're also going to be talking about absolute value in today's lesson. So just remember, this is a reminder that absolute value not positive or negative, tells how far a number is from 0 and is represented by two parallel lines. So we would write a number in those parallel lines. So for example, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of absolute value. So if I need the absolute value of -5, then I write it this way. I'm sorry. Absolute value is written inside two parallel lines, and the absolute value of -5 is 5. The absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of -716 is 716. It doesn't matter the size of the number. It doesn't matter what sign the number has originally. It will be always written as if it is positive, but it actually, absolute value is not positive or negative. We're just counting the distance. How many units is it from 0? Now I want you to go ahead and take out your student book, and I want you to open up to lesson 7 in module 5. Lesson 7 in module 5. And it says at the top, distance on the coordinate plane. You will also notice that it has 6.5 here and lesson 7. And it should be student page 30. And what we're going to do today is we are going to be using this coordinate plane on the bottom, and notice that they do not have numbers, so we're going to count each line just as one. We're just going to count by ones. The very first thing we're going to do is we are going to write the coordinates of each line segment. I'm going to zoom in on this real quick so you can see. So on this line segment, my first point is going to be point A. So this is going to be for point A. My second one is going to be for point B. I'm going to write the coordinates. Remember, we write those coordinates inside parentheses with a comma between each number. So first I need to find where is point A. So because I count my X number first, I go to my origin, my 0, and I'm going to count over to this line where I see the A. 1, 2. So my first number is 2. So I go up here to my ordered pair, and I'm going to write 2. Then I'm going to go over to this is -2 because it's on the opposite, it's on the left side of, it's -2 because it's on the left side of the origin. Then I'm going to count from my X all the way up to my Y. All the way up my Y to where my A is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me count that again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I put an 8 here. So my coordinates for A are -2, 8. Now I'm going to do the same thing for point B. Here's where point B is, all the way over here. So I have to start at my origin, and I'm going to count over to this line where this B sits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So then I go up here to the top and I put a 9 in as my first coordinate. Now I'm going to count up to the B from the X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Let me zoom out a little bit. So when we talked in our notes, we said that if the X's were the same number, then the line was vertical. If the Y's are the same number, then the line is horizontal. So remember, we write our coordinates as X comma Y. So our Y is our second number. So you can see here that my second numbers are the same. So my line is going to be horizontal. And I can check that, and I can see here from A to B, it does go left to right. It is horizontal. So that tells me that my coordinates should be correct. Now to find the distance between these, the first thing I can do is I can just count the spaces between A and B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So my distance is 11. Now, I need to prove that that distance is 11. And I can prove that using absolute value. So I'm going to look at my coordinate plane. And the numbers that match, I don't want those. I want the two that don't match. So I'm going to circle those. And the absolute value of -2 to the absolute value of 9. Now, I need to know what operation I need to put in here. Am I going to put an addition operation in there, or am I going to put a subtraction operation in there? So I'm going to give you a little clue. If I have to go 11, think in my mind, how can I make 2 and 9 equal 11? You're absolutely right if you said you would need to add them together. So if the signs don't match in your absolute value, if the signs don't match, then add. So now let's do the next one. The next one, I'm going to look for point B and point C. Now I've already counted point B, so I can just copy that. I don't have to recount that. That's why I want you to label the points that you're looking at so that you can go back, because we're going to reuse these same points again. But I've not found where C is on the coordinate plane, so I'm going to go to C. And here's my C. So first I need to count over from my origin to where C is on the X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to count over, and it's 9. Now I'm going to count up to where C is. 1, 2. So my coordinates are 9, 2. Now I'm going to find the distance between B and C. So I'm going to go from B to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my distance is 6. Now I'm going to circle the two numbers that are different in my coordinate, in my ordered pairs. So the first 2 match. My x's match. So now I'm going to go over to my y numbers. They don't match. I have an 8 and I have a 2. So I know I'm going to be using the absolute value of 8 and the absolute value of 2. And how can I get 8 and a 2 to equal 6? And that is subtract. So our little note to ourselves is, if the signs are the same, subtract. Let's do the next one together, and then I'm going to have you practice some on your own. So I'm going to be looking at points C and D. I've already found point C, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that information. So it was 9, 2. So now I need the coordinates of D. So I have to start at my origin. My D is over here on this line. So I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I go up here. My first number is 9. Now I've got to count how far down. Since I'm going down, I know I'm going to have a negative number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So negative 5. Now I'm going to count the distance between C and D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my distance was 7. And then when I go to do my proof, my 2 9s match. So I'm going to look at my 2 and my negative 5. Over here, I'm going to check. It says, if the signs don't match, I add. Since I have a positive number and a negative number, then I use their absolute value. So the absolute value of 2, the absolute value of negative 5, since they match or don't match, I know I'm going to add. And that equals 7. I want you to try BD, DE, and EF on your own. So pause the video, try that, and then come back and let's check and see how you've done. So let's go ahead and take a look at these answers. For BD, you should have written down the coordinates for B as 9, 8, and for D, 9, negative 5. When you counted the distance, you should have gotten 13. Because they have opposite signs, you're going to add the absolute value. So the absolute value of 8 plus the absolute value of negative 5 equals 13. And then for the next line, DE, you are going to find that D is at 9, negative 5, and E was at negative 2, negative 5. When you counted up the distance, you should have found that it was 11. Since you have opposite signs, you are going to add. So the absolute value of 9 plus the absolute value of negative 2 equals 11. Let's go ahead and do the next one together. So on the next one, I'm going to be using E and F. I already have the coordinates of E, so negative 2, negative 5. And F, I'm going to go down here on my coordinate plane. I'm going to count on my X first, so 1, 2. And since I'm going left, I'm going to be negative 2. And now I'm going to go down 1, 2, so negative 2. Now I'm going to count the distance between E and F. 1, 2, 3. So my distance is 3. Now I'm going to look for my 2 that don't match. And it looks like my Y coordinates don't match. So if the signs, they do. If the signs on the numbers are the same, then I subtract. So the absolute value of negative 5 minus the absolute value of negative 2 is equal to 3. I want you to go ahead and finish up the rest of this chart on your own. So pause your video and then come back and check and see if you are correct. Go ahead and check your answers for those last, I believe it was 5. So for FG, you should have found that the distance was 8. For EG, you should have found the distance was 11. For GA, you should have found the distance was 2. For FA, you should have found the distance was 10. And for EA, you should have found the distance were 13. That's the conclusion of this portion of your lesson. We will work through the rest of the lesson together. If you want to go ahead and try a few of those next ones on your own, that's fine. Remember, you can pause and rewind this video as often as you need to.